And now, our feature presentation.
Hello everyone and welcome to our feature presentation. I'm Neil and I'm here today with Phob. Say hi, Phob.
Hello, Spyro.
Yeah, and today we're here to talk about two Dreamworks movies. We're doing a Dreamworks double feature. We're going to be talking about Sinbad, Legend of the Seven Seas, I believe. And the other one is Prince of Egypt.
And they're both on par, amazing movies. Sinbad is probably the better of the two, I'm gonna have to admit right off the bat. No, it's a very obvious contrast. Sinbad is not nearly as good as Prince of Egypt, but I mean, I feel like Prince of Egypt obviously has a stronger start because it has, a story to like base itself off of, while Sinbad's completely original, so it's much easier to mess up, right?
Yeah.
So, but I want to talk about Sinbad first because I kind of want to say like good things about Prince of Egypt and then say okay things about Sinbad. So just starting with the harder one to compliment.
Well, first of all, reason we chose these two movies. If we could, I'm sure we would do like a quadruple feature with like all four 2D animated Dreamworks movies. There's, besides Prince of Egypt and Sinbad, there's also Spirit and Road to El Dorado. And it's probably just a lot easier and quicker to just do two at a time. So maybe in the future we can talk about Spirit and El Dorado in one video. But for right now, we're just talking about these two.
Well, and I don't know. I kind of wish we would have done like Prince of Egypt and Road to El Dorado like together, because I like both of those movies a lot more than Spirit and Sinbad. As a kid, I thought it was boring.
Okay.
I
watched it a lot as a kid, so.
Those two, because Road to El Dorado and Prince of Egypt were it's my childhood double feature, and I only watched Sinbad like once or twice. But I still, I obviously still liked it because I was a kid. But well, it's not obviously because I just said I didn't like Spirit, but you know what I mean. Like there are adventures, right?
Yeah.
So, well, I guess we should start before we start talking. We should at least explain what the plot for Sinbad is.
The plot of Sinbad. Oh, you're not making me explain this because I was kind of out of it. I've also this is only my second time watching it. Last time I watched this movie was when I was a kid. I remember liking it as a kid. I remember seeing ads all over for it. I remember there being like Burger King toys and stuff like that. But the movie itself, I kind of completely forgot until rewatching it. So
okay, well, I guess I can explain it if you are just so unprofessional as to not take it. It's your podcast, but
That's right.
Whatever.
I am unprofessional.
But no. Well, the plot to Sinbad is that it's kind of like a mash of like Greek mythology. It's like cherry picked, but also real life, like real world stuff together. It's a kind of an odd mythology because there only seems to be one god, or I guess goddess in this case, Ares, who's the goddess of discord, and her whole thing is that she just loves creating chaos on planet Earth, right? Like like plucking our strings, right? And she wants to steal this thing called the Book of Peace, which I haven't seen this very often, but it's a pure MacGuffin. Like it literally does nothing. Like all that happened, like because it's called the Book of Peace, but nothing indicates that it has anything to do with war or peace or like prosperity or anything.
We don't know what it does. We know it's important. That's
well,
it.
we know it's a magic book and it has LEDs in the pages, so it blinds you when you open it. That's all we know.
Yeah.
And then it was she steals it and frames Sinbad, and then Sinbad, his friend says, I'll go in his place. He didn't do it. I trust him. And so then Sinbad has to go and find the book in time before his friend gets executed for his crime, right?
Oh,
that he
his
didn't
friend's
commit.
his brother too. Should point that out.
No, he's not his brother. They're just
Oh,
friends.
really? I thought they were like legitimate.
They just have
brothers.
a brotherly bond.
Okay.
To have a brotherly bond.
I'm sorry, I completely missed that then.
Do you even have any like right to be speaking about this movie right now?
Probably not. I was talking to you while watching it. So.
But then like I know this because I watched it as a kid. Like if I'd probably watched it, I probably wouldn't have caught on either. If this was the first time I'd watched it in forever. But yeah, so he has to go and find it. He has to go to Tartarus, which is also weird because if I remember correctly, I don't think Ares is the goddess of discord, and I don't think she has control over constellations, and Tartarus is where it's like a place in the Hades domain where like all the Titans are, right? It's kind of like second hell for Titans, right?
Hell 2. It's the Peggle jump.
That's effectively what it is. It's just like you go to hell and then you go, oh, there's also another hell. This is an even worse one below us. But that's what Tartarus is, but now it's her domain, right? Although I will say I really love how it looks. It does look very otherworldly, right? But yeah, so it's and I mentioned this before. I think it was in Bar Talk, where I was like rambling like a crazy person about fetch quest movies.
Yeah.
And I think of what I should have meant was like maybe like segmented like adventure films, where like instead of having the one, like they have a through line, but really that's just supposed to connect a bunch of different set pieces that all have their own like miniature arcs, right? So like in Bartok, it's him collecting all the ingredients for that potion, and in Sinbad, which was one, I think I mentioned Sinbad in that. Hey, let's listen to a clip.
A land of mystery, a kingdom in peril, and to save the day, an albino bat?
Yeah, well, appearances can be deceiving.
There we go. Got caught. Caught red-handed.
I don't know if I'll be able to find it, but I'll try.
I'd said that it was I'd referenced it as a fetch quest movie, and it's segmented adventure film is probably better because they go to different places that all have different arcs. Like the first one is like sirens, right? Which is that's where I guess the Greek part came in, because there's like sirens in the water, they're luring them to their death, and then the second one is they're on like an island that's a fish, and then the third one is they get attacked by a snow eagle when their boat is like inexplicably like covered in ice, and they have to break it out, and a giant eagle attacks them, and then they have to go and find Ares herself. So I like that kind of format for movies because it means that obviously they were allowed to do a lot of their own things, like be creative and stuff with these set pieces, which I always find fun. But I do think it like weakens the movie a bit because then you have to compress character moments into these tiny little areas, and you don't give them a lot of time to flesh them out.
It's like a lot of like smaller stories, and it's almost an anthology, but it's all focused on one character.
Well, the through line is obviously too like apparent, right? Like it's the consistencies between those different arcs are too much to make it an anthology, right? Like because all the characters are the same and they all have the same quest throughout the thing. So
what is like Sinbad's arcs in this movie though? Because he's sexist.
Yeah, he's sexist.
And
he's sexist again on the island now.
He and his best friend dude has to have like a falling out, like they got in an argument or something, and they kind of they still seem close though, like they went separate paths, but he's still willing to like friends die for him. So
yeah, his arc throughout the whole movie was that he had to be like he had to fess up, like he had to accept the consequences of his actions instead of just running away from everything. And treating the people in his life as important to him because I actually kind of like this scene a lot. Even if they don't do a whole lot with it, I do like the scene a lot where like his friend, like a prince, is like, I'll accept his punishment, right? You don't kill him, right? Because he trusts Sinbad. He's like, yeah, no, Sinbad says he didn't take it. He didn't take it because he's my friend, right? So then but then he's like, I'll take his execution, right? And Sinbad, if Sinbad can come back with the book, right? And then they gave him 10 days for some reason. I don't know why. Just 10 days, why not? But and then Sinbad's like, what are you doing? Like, I'm not going to be responsible for your life. And then he goes, you would do the same for me. And he goes, no, I wouldn't. I was like, oh, like that shows, yeah, Sinbad, when he took this alternate path, he did become kind of a worse person for it, right? So that's his arc throughout the movies, that he realized that that he may have made a mistake in his life, right? That now he has to go and amend. He can't just, because initially what he wants to do is he wants to run away. As soon as he's freed, he just doesn't want to do anything with his friend. So,
I wish I were as cool as Sinbad.
Yeah, I wish I had as fat ankles as Sinbad does.
He has like weird looking ankles they kept having close-ups on.
It's because he has like baggy pants and like they like puff out, like they're puffy, right?
Yeah.
So, but the way that it just looks like he has really thick ankles and calves. It's just funny. Because then he has teeny tiny feet underneath them.
Yeah. I mean, I think when it comes to this movie, like, to the extent of like what I think about it, I watched it. I thought it was fun. I was like, all these adventure segments are like lots of fun to watch. Remind me of like when I was a kid, I used to love like pirates, probably just because I really like Pirates of the Caribbean. I think that's the extent of it. I recognize like all of the action adventure stuff is a lot of fun, and I think the animation itself is really well executed. For the most part, there's still some weird looking, like, this was the early 2000s, so CG was being used for backgrounds and for the ocean and stuff. And stuff like that does not hold up the best. But other than that, it's like, I enjoyed the movie visually and for like the action, but as far as the story, I couldn't really get too invested in it, and I think it's just kind of like there was a point at the movie where it was supposed to be like the big sad like moment where everything comes together.
I remember what you said. I remember what you said too.
What did I say?
You just went like, I know this is supposed to be a sad scene. I just wish I cared about these characters.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, I didn't hate these characters. I thought, like, Brad Pitt was, like, a fun, like, charismatic. Yeah. I call him Brad Pitt. I should be saying Sinbad, just to make that clear. but, like, I thought he was, like, a fun character. I thought all these characters were fun. It's just I didn't really care about, like, their connection to one another. So, like, when Sinbad's going to die at the end, like, in place of his brother, which I guess I just spoiled it. Sorry, but in place of his friend, I'm sorry, but when he's gonna die at the end in place of his friend, it's just kind of like, I should care, but I really don't. Well, it doesn't make the movie bad. It's just kind of like, yeah, that's something that could have been handled better.
And I remember, my favorite part was that, because like what happens is, his friends, it's like, oh no, Sinbad's not coming back, right? And then the executioner, he has his head on the chopping block, the executioner raises his axe, and then right before he hits, like, Sinbad throws the dagger, and
he throws the dagger at the axe.
And, like, the axe head snaps off and falls right in front of him, and we were just thinking, man, wouldn't this just be, like, wouldn't it just be hilarious if it just cut his head off anyway? And it's just like, that was like, oh... It
goes flying into his brain.
Yeah, and he's like, it goes directly into the pain center of his brain, so he just feels nothing but agony for like a couple minutes before he dies. But then I like that, then Sinbad puts his head on the chopping block, right? Because his friend, like, when he saved his friend was like, oh, I thought you'd never come back, right? He's like, well, did you do it? It's like, sorry, my best wasn't good enough. I couldn't get the book, right? So then Sinbad puts his head on the chopping block, and then the executioner raises his sword, and then the sword breaks apart, and we were really hoping there'd be like a third character that we'd never seen before, and they go like, "Whoa, Brandon, no, I thought you would never come. Did you get the book?" He's like, "No, I tried my best." And then he puts his head on the chopping block, and they just have to use like the dagger that Sinbad threw, and then it would just be like this really small. They'd have to like cut the guy's head off.
Honestly, I felt bad for that. I feel bad for executioners in movies because they're just trying to do their job, and then there's always something that goes wrong. They probably always get fired for it too.
Well, and I watched this video about like what it would be like to be like a medieval executioner, and apparently if you took too much time to perform an execution, right? Like if you because if you did if you create undue pain and stress for the person who's getting executed, sometimes you could accidentally like get the mob that was watching into like a frenzy, and they would very often beat the executioner to death and like stone them and stuff if they took too long to execute the person, right?
Oh, God.
So like that executioner, he's like sweating underneath his hood. He's like, okay, I have to kill somebody or else I'm gonna get beat to death.
That's exactly why they have to kill people, to save the life of the executioner.
I'm doing this for you, man. But yeah, no, and Ares, that's the thing with the animation, right? Because Ares comes and she's like, the main villain, and she gets quite a bit of screen time, but she's like really, really well animated. Like I can see why they use like CG for like the oceans and ships and stuff, because it's like they were putting all of their eggs in that Ares basket.
Yeah, you can tell the animators were really horny whenever she was on screen. It's not even subtle. It's just like.
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, I feel like it's one of those things where it's like after you've drawn like the 15,000th cell of her, I think your erection has probably gone away at that point.
Yeah,
you're just like, oh my god,
that.
I made a huge mistake. Why did I make her so complicated to animate?
Yeah. Well, I think that's the advantage they have, because I'm sure, even though I do wish like the entire thing was just 2D animated, I'm sure if they did go that route, they'd probably have to sacrifice some time on the animation of the characters themselves. And the animation of the characters is like phenomenal, like it's very fluent. So I guess I'm fine with how it turned out, like animation wise.
Yeah. Well, is that what we got for Sinbad? The legend?
Yeah.
I also just want to say Tartarus, like how it's animated, I really like how it looks with like the sand dunes like acting like waves in an ocean, and like constantly revealing like past civilization's ruins and stuff. Yeah. Right? Like that's I really like how that looks. And the super starry sky and the constellations coming up. I think that's really otherworldly, and I really, really like that.
Yeah.
But that's all I got.
I think overall, like, my thoughts, I'm not surprised this is like a mostly forgotten animated movie, but I think if you do like animation, it's worth a watch, because visually it's a very fun movie to watch. It's just, I think the story could have been stronger than it was.
Yeah. Alright, well then that's that.
Talk about Prince of Egypt, The Sands of Time.
Yeah, let's talk about Prince of Egypt now. Well, you keep making that joke. And it always goes right over my head because it sounds so official.
Yeah, it's The Sands of Time, starring Jake Gyllenhaal.
Is it Jake Gyllenhaal really? Oh wait,
he was in the Disney.
Shut up! Shut up!
No, it's Val Kilmer is in. Val Kilmer plays Moses and God in this movie.
Val Kilmer is God.
Yeah,
Man, I wish it had one of those like 2000s like 90s trailers. So it's like Val Kilmer is God.
Or it'd be like today for like animated cheap anime movies where they have that guy with the like high pitched voice. He goes like, or he has a very soft voice. He'd be like Val Kilmer as God.
Moses. Well, let's give a synopsis about the story of Prince of Egypt.
So it's the story of Moses from the Bible.
We should also stress it's only like the first part. of the story.
Well, they leave out the. I mean, I guess I'll get into that later, but they leave out probably like one of the most important chunks of it, and that's always bugged me about the movie. But anyway.
Well, it was supposed to be an origin story. They were setting up a whole Bible cinematic universe, right? This was just going to be like this was their Captain America.
They're going to have Prince of Egypt 2.
They're going to have Prince of Egypt. It was going to be Prince of Egypt Civil War at some point.
Prince of the Promised Land. He was going to fight Sinbad.
But yeah, what's the synopsis? It's the story of Moses.
Yeah,
Moses,
so
like
it's like it's in Egypt. The Hebrews are like slaves to the pharaohs and such, and of course a baby gets picked up by, I believe it's the mother, or the pharaoh's wife that picks her up, takes him in, and pretty much they keep it a secret that he is of Hebrew like heritage. He's raised with his brother who actually is Egyptian or whatever.
Ramses.
Yeah,
Ramses. I mean, technically, I guess they're all. No, I guess yeah, they're Egyptian. Yeah.
Anyway, so they're both raised to be like the next like pharaohs of Egypt, but then he discovers that he's actually he actually was born Hebrew, and then he kind of feels bad because because of all the slavery and such.
Yeah, he kind of feels bad because of all the people he murders at the beginning of the movie, which we'll get into. We'll get into the infamous.
And then he starts to kind of like rebel against his father and his brother and such, and he runs or he gets. Does he get kicked out or run away? I think
he runs away voluntarily
because he kills some guy. Mm-hmm. He kills some guy who was whipping a slave. He runs away, and then he goes.
Moses. We all know, or at least people who read the Bible know.
He hangs out with some Hebrew people, and then God tells him to go back and free his people, and he does so with plagues, and that's the story of the Prince of Egypt.
Very chopped to bits, but I think it'll do for what we're...
I'm bad at telling like the plot of movies. I can memorize them. I can't actually explain them.
But yeah, no, it's a story from the Bible. Obviously, they take some artistic liberties, and regardless of what you think of the Bible as the book that an entire religion is based off of, and multiple sects of that religion are, interpret it differently. The story itself, like as a mythology, it's interesting, right? It's a story because that's what stories are. They're fun to listen to, right? And that when you look at it that way, it becomes a lot like it becomes like a lot more like fun as a story about like brothers and stuff. And I think that's really, really strong, even if, at the beginning they murder all those people. But, as I said, we'll get into that later. But it's a really good story, and I don't know if this is true. I had heard this as a rumor, but the idea that if for animators who were working on this movie, if they were to be punished, they would be taken off as animators for Prince of Egypt, and they'd be moved to Shrek, which was also in production at that time.
Yeah, and then what turned out best for them?
It makes me so sad thinking about that.
Well, Shrek is pretty good. I unironically really enjoy Shrek, but I think it's just because I watched it so much as a kid, and I think it's like one of the most like quotable movies I can think of. So, in that sense, I guess I'm nostalgic for it. So,
yeah. But it's a very good movie, and Neil's right when he's saying that they do leave out one of the most one. No, they don't necessarily leave it out, but there's like nothing, like they don't really do anything with it because like, in the story of Moses, like, the first half is him. It's like the Exodus, right? They're like getting all of the Hebrews out of Egypt, right? Parting the Red Sea and stuff. That's the climax of the movie, right? But then you're like, oh, well, isn't Moses' thing that he has like his two big things? He parted the Red Sea, and he like got the Ten Commandments. from atop of the mountain, and that is just at the very end of the movie. I'm gonna be honest, it felt like a post-credit scene before the credits started.
Because the Red Sea part, that part is excellent. Like, they put a lot of effort into that part. Mm-hmm. It's like one of the, I mean, visually it's one of the most beautiful, like, animated things of the past, like, century, maybe. I don't know.
That's quite a.
I think it's the most iconic part of the movie, and there are a lot of like really well done segments in this film. So
you sounded like I watched this video about. It sounds unrelated, but I watched this video about like Dark Souls lore, right, for the first game.
Yeah.
And it's interesting hearing about this, but the guy was like, as we all know, Dark Souls is probably one of, if not the greatest game ever made. And I was like, whoa, you gotta pump the brakes there.
I'm not saying it is the best animated scene of all time, but it's...
As we all agree, it is one of the best scenes, if not the best scenes.
It would be in a top 20 list. I'd put it there.
It is very good. A lot of work was put into it.
But, yeah, then there's the Ten Commandments part, which, it kind of pisses me off, because it just quickly cuts to him at the end coming down the hill with the Ten Commandments. Completely ignores the whole plot about, like, them all going off to, like, worship a golden calf or whatever.
Yeah, well, and like... I think the best part is that Jeff Goldblum brother, he's the one who, like, instigates that, right, in the story.
Yeah.
And it's like I like it because he's looking over the camp and everyone's they're all waiting at the foot of the mountain. He's coming down the commandments. It's like they didn't tell you at all about all the stuff with the fact that like they're worshiping the calf, and like after that they have to do the exodus through the through like they have to actually go to their promised land.
Only like 3 or 4 people actually make it to the promised land by the end of it.
They just get dicked around all the time, and they're all like, Moses, like literally everyone's dying. He's like, it's around here somewhere. He's like, God told me.
That's the thing with the Bible, because like in real life you read the Bible, it's like, especially like the Old Testament, it's like those stories are horrific. And he's always very cruel to them. But then like this movie, it's a kids movie, and they're kind of afraid to like actually just say what actually. Okay, it's either they're afraid, or they just, which is also likely, they just didn't have time to animate all that, because that is a large segment that would take a long time.
It's a huge story. It's it's a pretty important story. So
yeah, that's why the
whole thing justice.
The live action one with Charlton Heston, which was the one I watched as a kid, that's like, I think it's like a almost 4-hour movie. It might only be 3 hours, but I remember being super long, and it's like, it's because they tell like the entire story like in detail. So
yeah. I think the whole complaint about it's not. A lot of these stories are they can be a bit fucked up, right? They maybe mess with a child's psyche a bit. And I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking, like what I said before, where it's like if you adapt it the same way you would adapt like Greek mythology or something, right? Like you adapt it as a story. Then you can take a couple artistic liberties. And
I don't mind it being cruel. I think it just would have been cool to actually see it in the movie, because them ignoring that stuff makes it kind of seem like they're glorifying, like, because they want to convince kids how cool God is, and they just kind of ignore all the bad stuff.
I'm going to be honest, I don't see that in that movie at all. I just see it as them adapting a story from the Bible and not necessarily making it, like, obviously they took a ton of creative liberties with how the story actually plays out, so it's like, it's more just like they wanted to tell a story, and the Bible has tons of stories. You don't necessarily have to believe it. It's just like you don't have to believe in like the Greeks, the whole thing, their pantheon of gods, in order to enjoy like stories about like Hercules and Zeus like fucking everything that lives, right?
Yeah,
like,
and at the end of the day, like as a movie, this still works really well. Like it's well told.
Well, I really like the whole stuff with that. They do get kind of creepy with it. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, like the angel of death and like turning the river into blood, right?
That's true.
Like
you're completely right.
And the whole like beginning part where he's like singing to himself, it's like, this is my home. Like, he's realizing that his like father like murdered like thousands of children and like justified it.
Oh,
and tried
they
to
have
justify
they have like the carvings with the babies being thrown to the alligators. It's just,
Which
it's just,
I feel like
I mean,
somebody
that would happen.
when they were carving that, it's like, obviously babies can't, like, they don't swim very good. So it's like, you could have just showed them getting thrown into the water, but no, you also gotta have alligators in there. It's like some hippos,
I just,
You have to imply that those babies did not survive.
it's just funny because they actually, they would have done that back then. Like, people back then were just huge dicks about, they were huge dicks of
Well,
babies.
babies, yeah. Babies suck. That's what they all said. That's their catchphrase from the past.
But, yeah. I was gonna talk about the brotherly bond in this movie, because, I don't know, like, what their bond actually was, and, like, because the Bible doesn't, like, go into, like, big detail on that stuff, which is, like, the most interesting stuff, to be honest.
Well,
Where
yeah,
it's, like, they're brothers. Like, they, even though, like, because you can tell that they still love each other. Like, yes, they completely disagree on, letting his people go, and his brother Ramses is very stubborn to make sure that he doesn't let them go.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still that connection throughout, like, the whole movie.
Where you can feel that they're, like, in pain that they have to be making these decisions, right?
Yeah, and that's something I like seeing. I like seeing, like, if you're gonna adapt something from the Bible, I want it to be humanized.
Yeah.
How would someone actually react to that if they were put in that situation? But
it's very good. Like, yeah, it's really all I can say. That's the thing.
that's
it's
like
very
the best
easy.
stuff in the movie.
It's very easy to tell somebody why you hate something, but it's really hard to tell someone why you like something, and that's why this movie's really hard to talk about, because I just kind of like it, and I know why I know why I don't like things in Sinbad, but I don't know why I like things in Prince of Egypt.
Well,
it's much hard to articulate.
I have only 2 gripes about this movie.
Okay.
Or maybe 3. One of them is very minor and not really a problem, and it's just that there's a lot of, like, goofy animals and stuff in the background. And I know they do that because it's a kid's movie, but it's also just kind of silly and dumb. But the other one is the ending, which I already talked about, how I wish they could have actually explained the ending instead of just ending it where it does end. And my third gripe was that I think a lot of the songs, like some of the songs in this, are really good, especially like the Plague song. Some of the songs though, like there's the one, I think it's Steve Martin and Martin Short, but I might be wrong. It's 2 comedians.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're playing
that
with
song.
the big.
Yeah,
Ow.
It's awful. I do not like that song.
Yeah. Because there are some really good songs in this movie, and as well as Val Kilmer plays a pretty mean god. Not like actually mean. In this movie, he's
very nice.
He's very nice, but other than all those babies he kills.
Well, they also put all those like filters and stuff over his voice, so he sounds.
Well, and the whole thing with the bush.
Angelic.
Well, and the whole thing with the bush, like, because that's the whole thing. That's the third thing. Well, if people know Moses, if anything, it's through like osmosis, where they know Red Sea,
Osmosis
burning
Jones.
bush. Not talk about him right now. Burning bush,
already.
Red Sea, and 10 Commandments. That's like the big 3, right? And like the burning bush scene, it does get its time and in the spotlight, and it's a very well animated scene with the fire turning like purple and like enveloping him.
Yeah,
but it's obviously like super peaceful. That's really nice. I like that scene. But I have a 4th gripe, and I've been meaning to talk about it this whole time. But they don't, like, I don't know why this happens, but at the beginning of the movie they murder a lot of people and they don't ever bring it up. And I don't know why. There's a scene, at the beginning there's a scene where they're doing like chariot racing through the streets, but you just see people being like crushed by like construction equipment and like getting caught under like their tire treads and stuff,
it's like the ending of Man of Steel.
the scaffolding's falling down on all these poor workers,
You
right?
see ash. You just see like the ash in the sky.
And then they're like talking to each other and having playful banter, and then they're like, first one with the highest body count wins, and then they keep going, and you're just like, this is really out of place. I don't know if I can vouch for these characters after this.
Yeah, it was really hard redeeming them after that, but as soon as he realized that he was Hebrew and left his
And
family,
then he murdered all those people.
as soon as he murdered that one guy who was whipping the slaves, it redeemed everything.
Oh, but yeah, no, that's That was my only gripe, So just watch it at your own discretion. It's pretty horrific.
That's true.
But is that all we got to say about Egypt?
I think so. I don't have much else to say. I liked it. Like I said, I have gripes with this movie. I don't absolutely love it, but I think the stuff that is good is really good, and that makes up for a lot of it.
I would agree. And watch it with the same mentality you would watch Disney's Hercules.
Yeah. Disney's Hercules.
Well, because it's adapting a mythology.
Yeah, but Disney's
And
Hercules
it's doing it for kids. It's doing it for kids, is what I mean.
Yeah,
okay,
but
it's not the same thing. You know what I mean, though. It's not the same thing, but it's just it has that same we're adapting tales from a mythology.
I wish they made I think Egypt should have looked like Vegas or something. Just have it have that kind of vibe, like Hercules. Kids will love it.
They all know what Vegas is.
Yeah.
Alright. Well, anything else?
Nope. I think we're done now. We'll be seeing you guys some other time then. We don't know what our next video will be. Maybe it'll be Dreamworks double feature.
It'll probably be you can count on it.
Okay, I guess we gotta do now.
Because I said it. You keep saying no, but now that I said it, we gotta do it.
So then we gotta do two, or just...
Unless you bleep it out, so that whenever I say it sounds like on television when they have to immediately censor somebody.
I'll probably do that then. Alright.
then we don't have to watch it. But don't censor me saying because we are gonna watch.
Alright, I'll see you later.
All right.
Bye.
Bye everybody, bye.